Have you ever had that weird feeling like something's missing, but you can't explain what? That's what happened to me. And it all started one normal day, or at least I thought it was normal. It was a Wednesday. I remember because we had math first thing in the morning, and I always hated that. I walked into the classroom, dragging my feet as usual. The desks were all in place, the windows slightly open, the faint sound of birds outside. Everything looked exactly the same. Except it wasn't. There was something off. I couldn't say what it was, not at first. But when I sat down and looked to my right, that's when I realized. The desk next to mine was empty. Now, you might think that's no big deal. Maybe someone was just absent. But no, this was his desk. He always sat there. We talked every single day. We traded snacks, played games on our phones under the table. He'd been sitting there for months. But that day, he was just gone. No bag, no books, no sign he was ever there. At first, I thought maybe he was sick or something. So I leaned over and asked the girl behind me, "Hey, where's Jaden?" She gave me a weird look. "Who?" she said. I laughed. "Jaden. You know, the guy who sits right here?" I pointed at the empty desk. She looked confused, then shrugged. "I think you've got the wrong name. No one sits there." "No one? What?" I turned around, looked at the other classmates. Some were chatting, some on their phones. No one seemed to notice anything strange. I raised my hand. "Miss, where's Jaden today?" I asked our teacher as she came in. She paused, blinking slowly. "Jaden?" "Yeah, Jaden, the guy who sits next to me." She stared at me for a second longer than felt normal. "There's no Jaden in this class," she said with a strange smile. "Are you feeling all right?" That's when my stomach dropped. Because she wasn't joking. She meant it. And then it hit me. No one remembered him. Not the teacher. Not my friends. Not even the attendance sheet had his name. It was like he'd never existed. But I remembered. His voice. His laugh. The way he always chewed on his pencil when he was nervous. I remembered everything. So why didn't anyone else? And why did it feel like I was the only one who knew the truth? Something wasn't right. And I wasn't going to stop until I found out what happened to Jaden. Even if it meant I was next. That empty desk haunted me all day. Even during lunch, I kept staring at it from across the room like he might just walk in, late as usual, holding his bag of chips and laughing like nothing happened. But the chair stayed still. Cold. Empty. I kept telling myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe he moved schools? Maybe his parents pulled him out last minute? But even that didn't make sense. Because if he transferred, why would no one remember him? I opened my phone and scrolled through my messages. Nothing. Our chat gone. I checked my photos. I knew I had some of him. We took a selfie just last week when we got caught sneaking chips into the library. But now, nothing. No selfies. No group pics. No sign of Jaden anywhere. Every photo that used to have him in it had a gap now. A weird space. Like someone had been erased. I was starting to freak out. Not just confused anymore. Actually scared. After school, I ran to my locker. Maybe there was something. A note, a drawing, anything he might have left behind. I opened the door fast, and a bunch of papers fell out. Among them was this small crumpled paper, stuck in a book I hadn't touched for weeks. It was a doodle. A sketch of our teacher with giant vampire teeth and fire behind her. Jaden style. I recognized the way he always drew the same little stars in the corners. I smiled. For a second I felt better. Proof. I wasn't going crazy. He was real. But then I turned the paper over. There was writing. Just 3 words. Message. Like it was written fast. "They are watching." I froze. Who was watching? Why would he write that? And why hide it in my locker? I looked around. The hallway was mostly empty now. Just the sound of someone's footsteps echoing down the corridor. I stuffed the note in my pocket and walked out fast. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every little noise made me jump. Every shadow looked too dark. And I kept thinking about those words. They are watching. Poor they. And if Jaden was trying to warn me, was it already too late? The next morning, I woke up with a headache. Not from being sick, but from overthinking. My brain felt like it hadn't shut down all night. Jaden, the empty desk, that creepy note. They are watching. Those 3 words repeated in my head like a song on loop. I got to school early. Earlier than I ever do. The halls were quiet, just a few teachers walking around and some students yawning into their coffee. I went straight to our classroom, and his desk was still there. Still empty. I stood in front of it, just staring. Something deep inside me told me there had to be a clue. A message. Something everyone else missed. I leaned down, checking the underside of the desk. Nothing. I opened the metal rack underneath. Just some old gum stuck to the side. Gross. Then I checked the floor beneath. And that's when I noticed something strange. A tiny piece of paper tucked between the floor tiles. Like it had been shoved there on purpose. I reached down, pulled it out carefully. It was another note. A torn piece of notebook paper, same messy handwriting as before. If they ask lie. My heart raced. What was happening? Who was they? Why was Jaden leaving secret notes like some spy thriller? I felt someone behind me. I turned fast. It was Mr. Halden, the assistant principal. He smiled too much. Like, way too much. Everything okay here? He asked, his eyes not really smiling even though his mouth was. Yeah, I said quickly, stuffing the paper into my pocket. Just drop something. He nodded, but didn't move. Just kept standing there, like he was waiting for me to say more. All right, he said after a pause and walked off, slowly. Still smiling. I waited till he was out of sight. Then I bolted. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to go. The library. Not for books, but for the archive room, the place where they kept old yearbooks, student files, all that stuff. I'd never been in there before, but I'd seen the librarian unlock it once. She was at the desk now, sipping her tea. I walked up, trying to act casual. Hey, I'm doing this project thing, I said. Thought maybe the old yearbooks could help? She smiled. Sure, I'll unlock the archive for you. Just don't mess anything up. The door opened. The room was small, dusty, and smelled like old paper and time. I pulled out the last 2 years of yearbooks and flipped through them like a maniac. Kindergarten photos, clubs, sports teams, and then page after page, and nothing. Jaden wasn't in a single picture. Not one. But I remembered seeing him in last year's book. I remembered pointing out how his hair looked like he cut it himself. Now, his face was gone. Literally erased. One photo even had someone with their arm around nobody. Just this awkward space. Like someone had been removed. Like someone wanted him removed. I felt cold. Someone, or something, didn't want Jaden to exist. And now I was starting to wonder, why do I still remember him? What made me different? And what would happen if I kept digging? I left the archive room with my heart pounding. This was real. It had to be. Jaden was erased from every photo, every file, like someone had gone through the trouble of removing every single trace of him. But they missed something. I still remembered, and the question kept burning in my mind. Why me? I sat through class that day, but I didn't hear a single word the teacher said. My eyes kept drifting to the empty desk beside me. I didn't even notice when the bell rang. Everyone left the room, but I stayed behind, still staring at the desk. And then something strange happened. I heard a noise. A soft tap tap tap. It was coming from inside the desk. I got up slowly, heart racing again, and opened it. Nothing. I knocked gently on the inside panel. It sounded hollow. I slid my hand underneath and felt something, a tiny bump, a seam. I pressed on it. A small hidden compartment popped open. Inside was a folded piece of paper. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. This one looked older. The edges were yellowed, like it had been hidden there a long time. I unfolded it carefully. It was a map, a rough sketch of our school's layout. But certain rooms were circled in red. The science lab, the old janitor's closet, and the basement. There was a basement? I'd never seen one, never heard anyone talk about it. But there it was, drawn clearly, with the word truth scribbled beside it in jagged letters. The bell rang again, next period. But I didn't care. I had a new mission now. I needed to find that basement. I waited until after school when the halls were empty again. Then I made my move. First stop, the janitor's closet. I walked past the science lab, past the lockers, and stopped in front of the old closet near the end of the hall. The door was half open, thus it barely used. I stepped inside. It was dark, cramped, and smelled like bleach and rust. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. Then I saw it, in the far corner, half hidden behind a mop and a stack of cardboard boxes. A metal hatch. I walked over slowly, heart thudding in my ears. Bent down, pulled the handle. It creaked loudly. I stared down into the darkness. A narrow staircase led below, into shadows that swallowed the light. I hesitated, but something told me this was it. This was where the answers were. I stepped down. 1 step, 2, 3. Each step echoed behind me. The door above groaned, then closed by itself. I was locked in, and I wasn't alone. Somewhere below, I heard breathing. The moment that hatch slammed shut above me, I knew there was no turning back. Darkness swallowed the stairwell, except for the weak beam of my phone's flashlight. My hand was shaking so badly the light kept flickering across the walls. The air was thick down here, like the place hadn't been touched in years. And then I heard it again. Breathing. Not mine. Not loud. But close. I froze. Tried to convince myself it was just old air vents or something stupid. But no, it was real. I gripped my phone tighter and kept moving down the stairs, one slow step at a time. The metal creaked under my feet. My heart pounded harder with every step. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a narrow hallway. The walls were made of old stone, not like the rest of the school at all. This place, it felt wrong. Like it wasn't part of the building. Like it was older. I walked forward, light scanning the walls. There were markings, strange symbols scratched into the stone. Circles, triangles, lines that made no sense. And then I saw something that made me stop cold. A name, carved into the wall in shaky, uneven letters. Jaden. Under it more words. They took me. My chest tightened. I wasn't imagining it. He was here. He'd been here. I kept walking. The hallway turned a corner and opened into a wider room. There were old desks stacked in the corners, broken chairs, even what looked like a chalkboard cracked in half. Like this used to be a classroom. A secret one. And on the far wall, dozens of names. All carved the same way. All scratched in panic. Some names I recognized. Old names. Kids who transferred years ago. Kids who just disappeared. I backed away slowly and then I heard a voice. Faint. A whisper. Don't trust them. I whipped around, pointing my light at the shadows. Hello. I called out. Jaden. Silence. Then there's another whisper. Closer this time. They watch everything. I could barely breathe. Where are you? I asked. What is this place? No answer. Only the sound of movement. Quick, so, like someone running just out of view. I followed the sound down another passageway. The walls were tighter here, the air colder. Then the tunnel opened into a small room. And there, in the middle, there was a desk. Just like the one in our classroom, but older. dustier, and on top of it, a notebook. Jaden's. I recognized his handwriting instantly. I flipped it open, and on the first page it said, "If you're reading this, they haven't erased you yet." My blood ran cold. Erased. That's what this was. Not a kidnapping. Not a transfer. They were erasing people. From photos. From memories. From the world. And somehow I was next in line. I stood in that room, staring at Jaden's notebook, hands trembling. "If you're reading this, they haven't erased you yet." It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a countdown. The pages were filled with notes. Messy, rushed handwriting. Scribbled maps. Names. Symbols. Pieces of something bigger. He'd been watching them. Whatever. One page stood out. Big red letters across the top. The memory room. Underneath it, Jaden had drawn another map. A deeper level. A place beneath the basement. Stairs drawn going down even further. That's when I noticed something in the corner of the room. A trapdoor. Well, almost hidden under old carpet and dust. I hesitated. Part of me screamed, "Leave. Just go. Pretend none of this happened." But I couldn't. I needed to know. I pulled the trapdoor open. It creaked like a scream, and a wave of cold air hit me in the face. Below, darkness. I climbed down slowly, each step colder than the last. The wood beneath my feet felt soft, like it hadn't been used in years. Then I saw it. A small, dim room. Nothing but mirrors. Lining the walls. The ceiling. Even the floor. Everywhere I looked, but something was off. My reflection didn't match me exactly. In one mirror, I looked younger. In another, older. In one, I was wearing different clothes. It was like each reflection came from a different version of me. And then I saw him. Jaden. Not in the mirrors. Behind them. For a second, our eyes met. He looked pale. Tired. Like he hadn't slept in days. He opened his mouth, like he wanted to speak, but then everything went black. My flashlight flickered and died. I was surrounded by silence. By myself. By my reflections. And then I heard it again. That same whisper. Right behind me. "You're next." I turned. Nothing. I turned back to the mirror, but now my reflection was gone. Gone. Nothing but darkness stared back. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, trying to retrace my steps. But every mirror, every wall looked the same. I couldn't tell where I came from. Somewhere in the dark, I heard footsteps. Not mine. Slow, steady, getting closer. I reached into my pocket, hands scrambling for anything, and my fingers closed around something. The paper. Jaden's last note. I pulled it out, unfolded it in the dark. I could barely see it, but the words were burned into my mind. "If you want out, forget me." I froze. Forget him? That's what they wanted. That's how they win. They erase us from the inside out. And now Jaden was telling me to let him go. To save myself. But I couldn't do it. I wouldn't. I won't forget him. No matter what happens next. I held the note in my hand like it was the last real thing I had. "If you want out, forget me." But I couldn't. I wouldn't. My fingers clenched the paper tighter. The darkness pressed in all around me, thick and alive. And then the footsteps stopped. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. There was someone, standing just beyond the edge of my hearing. Waiting. I whispered into the dark. "Jaden?" No answer. Only the sound of a mirror cracking. It started softly. Then another. And another. All around me. Snip. Shatter. Reflections breaking. Pieces of myself falling apart. And in the broken glass, I saw things. Not just my face. Not just Jaden. Other kids. Dozens. Watching from behind the mirrors. Their eyes wide. hollow. But they didn't move, didn't blink, like they were stuck between memories, between what was real and what was gone. I turned in a full circle, holding up my dead flashlight like it could protect me. I said it out loud, loud enough to shake. I remember him. Jaden. He was my friend. He was real. That's when the mirrors began to pulse. Not break this time, but glow. Soft white light, like the room itself was reacting to my voice. And suddenly, a mirror at the far end slid open. A door. I didn't wait. I ran. Through it. Out of that awful room. Down another hallway, this one lit with flickering red emergency lights. And then voices. Real ones. 2 people were standing ahead, backs turned, wearing all black. I ducked behind a corner and listened. He found the memory room, one of them said. How? He shouldn't have access. He remembers the erased. That makes him unstable. Unstable. That's what they thought I was. Then the other one said something that made my blood run cold. If he refuses to forget, we move to stage 2. Stage 2. I didn't want to find out what that was. I waited until they walked off, then slipped down a side hallway. The red lights dimmed as I moved until I came across something strange. A locker. Just one. Stuck in the middle of the underground hallway. And on it, scratched into the metal, for the one who still remembers. I opened it. Inside was a tape recorder. An old one. I pressed play. And Jaden's voice filled the air. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. But I'm not gone. Not yet. And neither are the others. They think memory is weakness. But it's power. You have to fight it. You have to remember. The tape ended in static. I stood there for a long time, the recorder still buzzing in my hand. Jaden was gone. Maybe. But he left me a mission. I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was going to expose them. Whatever stage 2 was, they were going to wish they'd erased me when they had the chance. After Jaden's message ended, I stood in that dim underground hallway, feeling something I hadn't felt since he vanished. Purpose. This wasn't just about finding him anymore. This was about stopping them, whoever they were, whatever they were doing. I slipped the tape recorder into my bag and took a photo of the locker with my phone, even though part of me wondered if digital stuff could even hold proof anymore. After all, the photos of Jaden in the yearbooks were gone. Would this vanish too? I didn't know, but I had to try. I crept back up the stairwell quietly, listening for footsteps, voices, anything. But it was silent now. Too silent. The hatch was open. That was the first red flag. I didn't leave it open. I climbed up into the janitor's closet, barely breathing. Peeked out into the hallway. Empty. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Like the school had reset itself. I checked the clock. It was 4:13 p.m. But when I looked at my phone, it said 6:42. The next morning, I blinked. Checked again. No mistake. I'd lost over 14 hours. Or someone took them from me. I ran out into the front courtyard. A few students were walking in, yawning, drinking coffee, joking around. Morning traffic. School was about to start. I felt dizzy, like I was floating above everything. No one even noticed me, like I was fading. I pushed through the front doors and went straight to my classroom. And that's when I saw it. Jaden's desk. Gone. Not empty. Gone. Like it had never been there at all. The teacher greeted me with a smile. Morning. You're early today. I didn't respond. I walked to where the desk had been. There was nothing. Just open space. Like the room had healed over the missing part. Are you feeling okay? The teacher asked, watching me. You look a bit lost. I almost said it. Almost screamed out loud. He was real. He sat right here. You knew him. But I didn't. Because something in her eyes told me she wasn't confused. She was checking. Testing me. I gave her a small, fake smile. Yeah, I'm fine. I sat down, kept quiet, pretended everything was normal, because now I knew they were watching me too. The erasers, the ones who rewrite reality. And if I wanted to survive, I had to play their game. But not forever, because I was going to find the others, who remembered, who resisted. I was going to bring Jaden back, even if I had to tear this whole fake world apart to do it. That day, I said nothing, did nothing. I sat through every class like a ghost in someone else's life. On the outside, I looked normal, bored even. But inside, I was building something, a plan. At lunch, I didn't go to the cafeteria. I slipped into the library instead, the quietest place in the school. No one noticed. No one cared. I headed straight for the computers and pulled up the school's internal files. No login needed, just a basic interface, boring and clean. But I wasn't looking for student grades or cafeteria menus. I was looking for anomalies, old directories, hidden folders, digital fingerprints, things the erasers might have missed. And I found one. A locked file buried under a pile of archived teacher reports from 3 years ago. The folder name? Echo List. I clicked it. Password required. I stared at the prompt for a second, thinking. Then I typed the one word that kept repeating in my head. Jaden. It opened. Inside were names. Dozens of them. First names only. Some I recognized from old class rosters. I didn't. All of them marked with a single word beside them. Echo. And next to that, 2 columns. Status, cleansed or unstable. Jaden was marked unstable. Just like me. I scrolled faster, heart racing. And then I saw a new entry. The most recent one. My name. No last name. Just me. Marked as, watch, status pending. I leaned back in the chair, cold sweat on my neck. They knew I was digging. They were waiting to see what I'd do next. That's when the screen flickered. Twice. Then every name on the list vanished, replaced by a single message. We see you. I jumped back from the computer, looked around. The library was empty. Or at least it looked empty. I shut the monitor down, grabbed my bag, and left as fast as I could. Something had changed. I'd made noise. I'd been noticed. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Teachers spoke, students laughed, the clock ticked forward. But everything felt fake, like I was inside a set, like the people around me were just waiting for their next line. After school, I didn't go home. I waited. Followed the janitor when he locked up the building. I knew he had keys, and I knew he was old enough to remember. Maybe. When he stopped by the back exit, I made my move. "Excuse me," I said. He turned slowly, looked me in the eye, and for a moment, his expression changed. Recognition. "Jaden," I said. "Do you remember him?" His face stiffened. Then he muttered, "No visitors allowed," after closing, and started to walk away. I grabbed his arm. "Please, you do remember. I saw your face." He didn't answer, but he pressed something into my hand. A small key. No label. Then he whispered, barely audible, "Basement. North wing. Door behind the lockers." He walked off without another word. I looked down at the key in my palm. Cold, heavy. It wasn't over. Not even close. That night, I couldn't sleep. The key burned in my pocket like it held a secret just for me. I kept turning Jaden's notebook over in my mind. The maps, the warnings, the names carved in stone. I knew where I had to go next. The north wing basement door behind the lockers. It was almost midnight when I snuck back into the school. The halls were silent except for my footsteps and the distant hum of emergency lights. I moved quickly, heart pounding with every step. I passed the lockers, one by one, until I reached the end of the hall. There was a heavy metal door, old and rusted, almost hidden in the shadows. I pulled the key out and slid it into the lock. It clicked open. The door creaked as I pushed it slowly inward. Inside was a narrow staircase leading down. I hesitated, but I knew I had to keep going. Step by step, I descended into darkness colder than anything I'd felt before. At the bottom, the light from my phone flickered against a long corridor. It was lined with metal doors, each one marked with a different name. I scanned the labels. Echo 17, Echo 23, Echo 42. Each door had a small window covered by thick glass. And behind one of the windows, a face. A kid, eyes wide with fear. I pressed my hand against the glass. He mouthed a single word. Help. My heart broke. This was worse than I imagined. They weren't just erasing memories. They were trapping people. People who still remembered. And I was next. I had to get him out. All of them out. But just then, I heard footsteps echoing down the hall behind me. I wasn't alone. The footsteps grew louder, closer, faster. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering so loud I thought it might give me away. The light at the end of the hallway flickered, and then 2 figures appeared, dressed in black, faces hidden in shadows. They stopped just a few feet from the door where the kid was trapped. One of them spoke, voice cold and sharp. "He's here." The other nodded, pulling out a small device, something that looked like a remote control. I knew I had seconds. I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record, hoping to capture proof, anything to expose this nightmare. The 2 moved toward the door. I had to act. I looked around quickly. A fire extinguisher hung on the wall nearby. Grabbing it, I charged forward, swinging with everything I had. The first one staggered back, surprised. But the second was faster. A sharp blow to my side sent me crashing against the wall. I gasped for air, pain shooting through me, but I refused to give up. The trapped kid pressed his hand against the glass again. "Please." I crawled to the door and fumbled with the lock, trying to open it. The device in the guard's hand beeped. Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. My phone's flashlight flickered back on, weak but enough to see. And then, from the shadows, a whisper, Jaden's voice. "You're not alone." Hope flared inside me, sharp and bright. I kept working on the lock. The guards shouted in the dark, scrambling to find me. But I was focused on one thing, freeing them. My fingers fumbled with the lock, cold and slick with sweat. The whispers grew louder, echoing in the dark. "Don't stop. You can do this." Jaden's voice. The lock clicked. The door creaked open just as footsteps slammed into the wall beside me. I grabbed the kid's hand, pulling him free. He stumbled out, eyes wide with fear and relief. "Thank you," he whispered. We moved fast down the hallway, hearts pounding in sync. But the sound of more footsteps was closing in behind us. I glanced back. 2 guards, shouting, chasing us through the maze of doors. We turned a corner and found a stairwell. I pulled the kid with me, running up the stairs 2 at a time. The emergency exit was near. Light flooded in as we burst through the door into the cool night air. Freedom. For a moment, I thought we were safe. But then I heard it, the sound of a phone ringing. My phone. The screen lit up. A message. "You escaped. But they remember you now." And beneath it, a photo. Alone. In the dark hallway. They were watching. And they weren't done yet. I stared at the phone, the message burning into my mind. "They remember you now." Who were they? And what did it mean? I looked at the kid beside me. His eyes were wide but determined. "We need to find the others," he said quietly, "before they come back." I nodded. No more running. We moved quickly through the night, away from the school, away from the shadows that chased us. But the world felt different now. Like the air itself was charged with danger. Every sound was louder, every shadow deeper. I thought about the classmates who vanished, erased from memory, and the ones locked away in that basement. How many more were out there, waiting to be found? I clenched my fists. This wasn't just about Jaden anymore. It was about all of us, about fighting back. And I was ready. The night stretched on, heavy with silence. We moved through empty streets, shadows flickering under the streetlights. The kid whispered a name. Ella. She was another echo, another one they tried to erase. I had to find her. The only clue was an address scrawled in Jaden's notebook. An old abandoned house at the edge of town. We approached it cautiously. The windows were boarded up, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the air was thick with dust and forgotten memories. And then we heard a soft sound, a whisper, a breath. Help! We followed it to a small room at the back. There she was, pale, frightened, but alive. She looked up at us, hope flickering in her eyes. "We're not alone anymore," I said. But just as relief started to settle, the floor beneath us creaked. They had found us, and the fight was far from over. Ella's eyes locked onto mine, filled with fear but also something stronger, hope. "We have to keep moving," I said, helping her up. The floor creaked again, louder this time. They were closing in. We didn't wait. The three of us slipped through a side door and into the night, hearts pounding like thunder. I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. Jaden wasn't gone. The erased weren't gone. And I wasn't going to let them disappear, not anymore. No matter what they did, I was going to fight, to remember, to bring back every lost face. Because some memories are too important to forget, and some friends are never really gone. Fade out. Thanks for following the story of the disappearing classmate. If you want to know what happens next, or hear more stories like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because some mysteries are only just beginning. Looking back now, I realize how fragile memory really is. How easily it can be taken away, erased, like a name wiped off a page. But memories don't just disappear because others want them to. They live inside us, in the smallest moments and the strongest feelings. Jaden wasn't just a classmate who vanished. He was a reminder that the truth matters, that remembering is a kind of rebellion. And sometimes, the most important thing we can do is to hold on to what others try to erase. Because in those memories, we find ourselves. And in those stories, we find our strength. So if you ever feel like someone you care about is fading from your life, or if you feel forgotten, remember this. You are not alone, and your story matters.